happens when the system is warned, when prosecutors say in plain language that someone should not be released, when the danger is outlined, when the risk is acknowledged, when the red flags are raised, yet a mother of two ends up gone just days later. This is not just another line in a police blotter. This is not just another passing headline. This is the story of Sharita Cristwell, a 36-year-old woman from Prince George's County, Maryland, whose death in July of 2025 has left behind not only a grieving family, but also a series of haunting questions. Questions about how the justice system responded to danger, questions about whether accountability was misplaced, and questions about how many times we must watch the same pattern play out before something changes. Before she became a name in court records and press releases, Sharita was a woman of ambition, persistence, and love. Those who knew her describe her as deeply family-oriented, someone who balanced work, children, and her own aspirations. She worked as a makeup artist, a profession that was more than cosmetic. For Sharita, it was about helping people feel seen, confident, and capable. Friends say she lit up a room when she entered, and she had a way of making her clients feel like their best selves. It was not just a job but a calling, one she pursued to create stability for her children and to build a future she could be proud of. Sharita was the kind of mother who put her kids at the center of every decision. She wanted them to know they were loved, to feel safe, to grow up with opportunities she hadn't always had. Her family recalls moments as simple as cooking dinner together, or braiding her daughter's hair, or laughing in the car with music playing. These are the kinds of ordinary but priceless moments that defined her life. A family member remembered her this way. She just wanted to live for her kids. She was building something better. It is in those words that we find the essence of who she was, not defined by tragedy, but by her will to keep moving forward. But the events of June 2025 would put her on a path that neither she nor her family could alter. On June 16th, her partner was arrested and charged with strangulation, a crime Maryland law recognizes as serious and violent. Strangulation charges are not treated lightly because they carry with them an undeniable implication of danger. Research shows that non-fatal strangulation in intimate partner cases is one of the strongest predictors of future lethal violence. It is, in effect, a warning sign with flashing red lights. That day, prosecutors appeared before the court and made their request clear: no bond. They argued that releasing the accused back into the community and back into proximity with Sharita was a risk too high to take. Their position was not vague, it was not uncertain, it was deliberate. This man should not be free while awaiting trial. But the court had discretion, and the judge chose otherwise. The accused was released, placed under home detention and electronic monitoring. On paper, it was a form of control, a compromise between detention and freedom. In practice, it proved hollow. Because what is an ankle monitor to someone willing to defy rules? And what is home detention when the victim, the one most at risk, is left unguarded? For Sharita, that decision meant she was once again left in the presence of danger. The law had weighed her safety against the defendant's release and decided the balance tipped toward release. For 4 days, she lived with that judgment. 4 days in which her life hung on the thin promise of home monitoring. 4 days in which prosecutors' warnings were set aside. 4 days that ended in the silence of tragedy. On July 5th, officers in Prince George's County responded to a call. When they arrived, they found Sharita unresponsive. Despite emergency efforts, she did not survive. 36 years old, a mother of 2 children now left without their mother. A daughter, a sister, a friend, gone. Her death was not just a private loss, but a public rupture, because everyone who had seen the warning signs, everyone who had asked the court to hold the accused in custody, now carried the weight of knowing they had been ignored. 2 days later, on July 7th, authorities announced an arrest. The same man who had been charged with strangulation weeks earlier was taken into custody again, this time facing charges for her death. The press release was short, professional, and restrained. It confirmed that charges had been filed, that the accused was in custody, and that the case was moving forward. But behind those few sentences lay a universe of grief, frustration, and outrage. Because the arrest was not the beginning of accountability. It was confirmation of the risk prosecutors had already flagged. It was the embodiment of their warning that if released, harm could follow. And so the question lingered, could this have been prevented? When prosecutors stand in court and argue for no bond, they do so on the basis of risk assessments, criminal history, and the severity of the charge. They are not fortune tellers, but they are trained to evaluate danger. In this case, their request was denied. The court exercised its authority to release under conditions, and the result was fatal. This forces us to confront the structure of bond decisions themselves. The American justice system is built on the presumption of innocence, on the idea that defendants should not be punished before conviction. But it is also built on the need to protect victims and communities from ongoing harm. In cases like Sharita's, those two principles collided, and when they did, the scales tipped away from safety. We must ask, did the system underestimate the danger? Did it lean too heavily on the idea that electronic monitoring could substitute for incarceration? Did it prioritize the defendant's liberty over Sharita's right to protection? And perhaps most painful of all, if the court had granted the prosecutor's request, if no bond had been set, would Sharita still be alive today? These are not questions her family can afford to ignore. They are left now not only with grief, but with the knowledge that the system had been warned. Her children, still young, will grow up without the daily presence of their mother. Her family is left with memories and with the hollow space where her laughter once was. One relative expressed it plainly. She didn't deserve this. We just want justice. Justice, in their eyes, is not just about convicting the accused. It is about confronting the choices that allowed him to be free in the first place. The community, too, is left to process. Domestic violence cases are not rare, and neither are stories of victims lost after systems fail to intervene decisively. Sharita's case is both personal and emblematic. It represents the human cost of hesitation, the consequences of treating strangulation as just another charge, rather than the flashing alarm it is. The case is now moving forward in court. The accused faces charges, and hearings will continue. But the family's fight does not end with prosecution. They carry the responsibility of making sure Sharita's name is remembered, that her children grow up knowing who their mother was, and that others understand the price of systemic missteps. This is not an isolated event. Across the United States, bond hearings play out every day. Prosecutors request detention, judges weigh the evidence, defendants argue for release. And too often, the voices of victims or the risks they face are overshadowed by procedure. Sharita's story is part of a pattern, one where decisions made in a courtroom echo into lives beyond it, where the choice to release can mean the difference between safety and loss. Her name deserves to be remembered not only as a victim, but as a woman who lived with ambition and love. Her children deserve to grow up hearing about her strength, not just about the way she died. And her case deserves to spark conversation about how we handle pretrial detention, how we weigh prosecutorial warnings, and how we protect those most at risk of intimate partner violence. If you know anything that could help investigators as this case proceeds, Prince George's County Crime Solvers has asked the public for information. You can call 1-866-411-TIPS and reference case number 25-003665-6. And if you or someone you know is experiencing domestic violence, please remember there are resources available. The National Domestic Violence Hotline operates 24 hours a day at 1-800-799-SAFE. They provide confidential support, safety planning, and connections to local resources. No one should feel alone, and no one should feel unprotected. Tonight, as we close, we remember Sharita not only for how her life ended, but for how she lived. She was a mother, an artist, a woman who fought to build a better life. Her story is a reminder of what is at stake when systems fail to act decisively, and it is a call to ensure that her name is not lost to silence. This video is dedicated to her memory. In memory of Sharita Cristwell, 1989 to 2025. May her story bring not only justice but awareness. And may her children, her family, and her community find strength in remembering the love she gave and the life she lived.